Welcome back to another episode of Impossible Equals I'm Possible, a live show co created to inspire others to focus on their potential instead of accepting their reality. And this show has been around for a little over a year. I don't think I've done two shows in 1 week. We had an incredible conversation with Jason Cisneros last week, Thursday. And tonight we have an amazing conversation with, for full transparency, somebody who is one of my clients and has become a dear friend. And I just feel like there's certain people that you just come across, and when I think about what this show is about and what it really resembles, I couldn't think of a more fitting guest to have on the show. And the thing that blows me away about how powerful this platform of LinkedIn has become is that we introduced my dear friend last week Friday on her first LinkedIn audio event. She's been over on Facebook for, gosh, I think 7 years at this point, and she's probably done like thousands of live videos. So this is definitely more of her element. But just seeing the way that she is attacking this opportunity on LinkedIn has become so powerful. And I see that my friend Carrie hopped in. Good to see you, Carrie. Yeah, but this is going to be a fascinating episode. So, with no further ado, my guest tonight is my dear friend, Michelle Shooltz. Michelle is a serial entrepreneur, wife, mom, lupus warrior, and one of the most energetic humans I've ever met. You'll see what I mean real quickly. From overcoming a challenging upbringing to an unfulfilling career in healthcare, and now building multiple six-figure businesses to live life on her terms. From her clothing boutique, home renovation business, and now working on getting her coaching certification, her mission is to inspire others to build and live a confident, fulfilled life, turning their dreams into a reality. And with no further ado, I bring to you my dear friend and client, Michelle Shooltz. Is it
Ah,
going?
nice to be on.
Michelle, thank you so much for being here. I We were just talking in the pre-live about how even though we've kind of known each other for a couple years because we have a mutual mentor, and but it's really only been this year that you and I have really gotten to know each other. And I just want you to know that it has been an absolute pleasure getting to work with you, and your story has been so inspiring to me. And I'm so grateful because you taught me a lot about perspective on some of the challenges that, you know, people that are not necessarily in my age demographic face. And it was just really a powerful experience for me. And I'm so grateful to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to be on. It's a pleasure. It's been an honor to work with you too. I've learned a lot from you. A lot that I didn't think that I would learn, not necessarily even about LinkedIn, right? But it's been such a pleasure. I love learning from new people. I think connection is key. I think we have the opportunity to learn something new from everybody that we encounter in life, whether it's at the grocery store or through mentorship. So, likewise, friend, it's been amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, like, despite a lot of your challenges, right, we had an incredible audio event. You got to meet some of my friends, and they learned a little bit about kind of a lot of the things that you've kind of overcome, and that you've, even though you're in kind of this, I guess you would say, quote unquote, I'm possible part of your life, it hasn't always been that way. Tell us a little bit about who is Michelle, and what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome?
Sure. Well, let's go back to my childhood. I wasn't really raised in the best of environments. And it started there, honestly. I think that the seed of doubt was planted very early in my life. And so it's been a battle since I was a kid. Um, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a horrible upbringing. I had a home, I had a roof over my head and food on the table every single night and toys to play with. And so in that aspect, I wasn't lacked. But a lot of people don't understand that being taken care of isn't just your physical things, it's also mentally. And there was huge lack and guidance and nurturance and protection in my childhood. So right from from the get-go, it's been a road of adversity and just never giving up. So I grew up in the same town until I was in middle school. So all of my, I call them my childhood friends, were always there for me. I had a pretty stable childhood. um, I didn't really notice that I was different until I was like 13, 12, 13, and really the way I was raised. And that was when life got really hard. Um, I I learned at a very young age that my dad was part of the adult industry. So having to navigate childhood through that has been something most haven't had to deal with. It's not something that's of norm in society, right? So I guess from the beginning, it's really been me fighting for my life and what I wanted and not listening to anybody else but myself. But obviously, with that road comes a whole bunch of challenges. Um, so yeah, it started young. And when I moved into our second home when I was in junior high and kind of started learning how my dad was making his money, he's always been an entrepreneur. He was into like the computer game right at the beginning. Like AOL chat was like in our house when I was young. Like, I mean, you could probably remember the days of internet and dial up and the like, "Arr!" Yes, right in our house. It was something that was like very prevalent. So, it's something that I've learned the internet since the beginning, which has given me great power now as an adult, which is very, it's, it's weird for me because the internet has given me such great power, but it has also brought me such great hurt because I know how powerful the internet is because I have had it in the household since I was so young. Moving into the second house, realizing what my dad did for a living, um, he obviously moved it out of the house. He was photographing and all the things. So he at a point had to keep it away from us, but we knew. And then our house got raided when I was 14. So I was kind of forced to know about it then. I learned a lot about our judicial system when I was 14. I've learned a lot about manipulation since then. So I've had to move through that. And I moved out very young because of what was going on in our home. Um, I told myself when I was 14, and this is something that I don't tell a whole bunch of people, but I feel the Lord telling me to say it right now, is that I made a promise to myself when that happened that my life would not be of hurt and of struggle and that word, but it really was a struggle for my parents every single day. And then when the raid happened, it was just amplified times 100 because now we have legal battles and judicial system and lawyers and money flying. Um, so when I was 17, I moved out. Um, I very quickly finished high school. I actually was able to graduate a semester early, my senior year with high honor roll. I was in the Junior Miss Teen of Illinois pageant. I was featured in some high honors books for my achievements in academics, which is something I'm very proud of, being the environment that I was brought up in. So I moved out when I was 17, got my CNA certificate, and worked 13 years in um, the nursing home slash hospital, kind of bounced between a whole bunch. Learned a whole bunch about my elders and respected my elders through that. And then that's when true entrepreneurship kicked in because I got pregnant with my babies. Um, I was a stay at home mom for 3, 4 years. but I always knew like I I was meant to be in the workplace. I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I knew that. I never wanted to put my kid in daycare. Um, but I also knew I needed to make my heart happy and work. So that's when MLM and direct sales entered into my life because it truly was my way to stay home. Selling clothes with LuLaRoe and starting my own boutique has given me the freedom to do that. I'm so grateful, not only for the community there, but I quite literally learned how to run a business there. I had no idea with a high school diploma what in the snots I was doing, but I learned, and I learned really quick because I had to. Um, so I worked in that space for a solid 5 years, 5.5 years until I started really not feeling fulfilled there. I love it. I still do it. It brings me so much joy, but it wasn't filling the cup all the way. And I realized that because God put me here to serve people and help people. And that is where Built Confident kind of started growing. I've always led women in LuLaRoe and building business and in my own mentorships, helping others that were in the mentorship. I've always been that leader at heart. And so it's just kind of rolled into something more now, and why I have hopped on LinkedIn.
Yeah, wow. You said a lot there, and there were so many things that you said that really resonated with me. I think a few of the things that stood out is I kind of grew up with my grandparents, so it was like they were
Mhm.
both retired, right? And I mean, I had everything that I wanted, like physically, but because they were older, from like a mental and emotional standpoint, I was kind of alone, right? Because they couldn't
Mm.
play with me, they couldn't do a lot of things, and I a lot of people have this perspective that, oh, just because like you grow up with money or you have this, that like everything must be great, and it's like I don't know about you, but for me, I would have definitely traded all this stuff to have like people who could like play with me, do things together, right? Like actually um be able to spend time together and create memories instead of just like, oh, like, and I understood because it's where my grandparents were at in their life, and they weren't necessarily like the healthiest people. So but that really resonated. And then when you talked about how you really kind of grew up at a young age, like that really hit home for me because by the time that I was 17, I had lost nearly everyone close to me. And as I like to say, like that was the year that life called my number, and I haven't stopped picking up the phone since, right? And the the thing that's so fascinating to me, because you and I've kind of talked about this, right? Like my through line is all about being the person for others that I wish that I had. So it gives me so much joy and happiness to be able to give you this platform, to be able to meet a lot of incredible people that I've met and put your story out there. I'm really curious for you though, like how did you slowly learn how to kind of build your confidence? Because I can only imagine that there was a lot of trauma and healing that you really had to kind of like work through. And I don't know if you ever really like get over it, but in my experience, I think you get to this point where you're able to become grateful for it and look at the lessons, or as I like to call them, like blessings that it gave you, so that you can use your story and experience to serve others.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There was a point in my life where my story really did hurt me and affect me, and I think anyone who's gone through trauma, it will always do that. It always holds that space, but there comes a point where it's your responsibility to heal it. And when you're starting to notice that your life doesn't feel right, it feels like you're not in the right place, or you're uber negative, or you're not like the human body was designed to grow. And if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling in a negative space, typically it's because you're not in a growth or healing state. Um, I really started to feel that when I started to seek mentorship. I started to realize the negative effects I was having on my own family. And that wasn't until about 5 years ago that I really started to feel like I was crazy. To be 100% honest with you, I thought I was crazy. And I'm like, this is not the way God designed my life to be, anybody's life to be for that matter. And I really just started seeking counsel. Um, I started seeking growth in areas where I would hear something from a doctor and I would say, "Oh, well, what is that?" And I would research a little bit further and something would strike a note with me and I would just keep going. I never gave up on the research. I never gave up on, if I hit somewhere where it was trauma therapy or EMDR, and, I had no idea what that was or if I even wanted to venture down that road. But I had no idea what EMDR was 5 years ago. And so now I do. And now I've educated myself. So it's just um, this constant growth every single day in my life and ensuring that I don't go a day without learning something, whether it's from somebody or a book or the internet, like everything is Googleable. And so I really 5 years ago is when I really started learning that I even had trauma. When I started working with my mentor, Danelle, and I had no idea even what a boundary was or a goal. Like I didn't set goals. I didn't know what boundaries were. I thought, like before we went live, we were talking about getting to be like that. Oh, that's just the way she is. That's just the way they are. And learning like that is our own infliction of hurt on ourselves by saying that. That's trauma in itself. Um, so learning all of those things to the point where I understood where it stemmed from, and it was my parents. And as hard as it was, I had to cut ties. I had to put boundaries because they were the source of the constant hurt. From not listening to me in the home with the adult content that was there, and the women who were constantly filtered in and out of our home, and not listening to the boundary of meeting that not there. I moved out. I created my own boundary. And I didn't even realize this until 5 years ago. I didn't realize that I had self imposed boundaries to stop the hurt. And I didn't even realize it. So, moving from my hometown 375 plus miles away to Michigan, that was a boundary I put in place because I didn't want to be around my parents, right? And I didn't even know that. So, seeking counsel, seeking mentorship, continuously growing was what made me realize I actually had an issue that I could actually go to a doctor and seek help. So just grow every day. Don't let yourself stay stagnant. Don't stay complacent. Um, you'll learn eventually. God will show you and place the people who you need to see in your path. And if you're listening and you do the work, it's bound to happen.
Yeah, powerful. You definitely said a lot there, and one of the things that really kind of resonated for me is I've been kind of noticing this theme, especially over the past couple of weeks. Like some of the people that I've had conversations with in other communities, and just out and about on LinkedIn. There's so many people who and this has been something for me that has become a really powerful life lesson, is this idea that I think most people in life are going to teach you kind of what not to do and like how not to be. And you really have to like keep the ones that teach you how to do it the correct way close to you. I'm curious for you. So like I'm not a parent, everyone, just for like full transparency. But I really do feel like the things that I didn't learn from my parents, I learned from my mentors. And it's like the term mentor for me is honestly probably going to get erased soon because I feel like they're really like a part of my family, right? Like I'm a very selective person. And I was joking with one of my friends. I was like, I'm kind of like the biggest cynic until like I get to know you. And if, we click, I'm like, one of those like ride or die people, like I'm all in.
Hmm.
And what I'm curious for you is because you mentioned, right, a huge kind of turning point in your life was when you had kids. And what I'm kind of curious for is for somebody that grew up in an environment that kind of felt like, your parents didn't really care about you, didn't any of those things. How has your relationship kind of like as a parent, how did that evolve? Because I feel like I would say for you, when you had kids, was your like instant thought process like, oh, I'm not going to be like my parents?
Oh, for sure. Yes, but I was exactly like my mother. Like, it took me time to realize, like, when I started feeling like I was turning into my mom was when I saw help. That's when it was the lowest point. Thank goodness children are resilient and they don't remember the first 5 years of their life. I have mom guilt. I'm not gonna lie. There's some days where it gets me because I haven't been the perfect human, to my children. But I think we all navigate, parenthood, as it happens. I don't think we're ever prepared for what parenthood is. Nobody is. If you are, you're lying. I need to know what book you're reading, please, because I will read it. I still have young kids, and they're in my house for at least 8 more years. So, I will read that book if you think that that's the case. But honestly, through personal experience, I have learned it as it has come. My kids don't love me any less. I have to remind myself of that. They don't remember when I was not a kind human. But I have learned it. I have learned patience, definitely exiting those negative people out of my life and injecting it with more positive people has made me a better human myself. And so now I am able to give them that life that I always wanted. And that is always in the forefront of my mind. I will give my children what I always wanted. That's why we have built the life we have built. There are things I'm so grateful I've been able to show my children that my parents haven't been able to show me. Just honestly, the nurturance, the guidance, and the protection that children need from their mothers, is something that they will never have to question, from me, ever. So,
Yeah, no, that was like so powerful, and it's like I have so much respect for people who can do that. I think just because for the longest time, like the one thing that I always wanted was like to have a dad. Like even though a lot of my friends like didn't really have a ton of money, all these type of things, the fact that they had a dad who would like, I mean, I grew up playing sports, so it's like, but I would practice like on my own a lot just because my grandparents were older, so they couldn't, really run or do all these type of things. And it's so fascinating that you've been able to do that. On that same topic of kids, I'm curious for you because the, this huge like I'd say this huge issue between like a lot of people from the older generation and like the younger generation now is that they feel like a lot of the younger generation are like entitled, all these type of things. The question that I always love asking parents is like, how do you find this harmony with like, you want to give your kids things that you didn't have, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you don't like give them everything and then they don't like work to have to like earn it and be like, hey, this is not how life works. Like you have to like earn it, or you have to like do this to get this. Like w- how have you been able to navigate that? Because it's like I've seen some of the stuff that you do, like you take your kids on vacations and a lot of these cool things. I always laugh when I see that because I was like, I didn't travel internationally until I was like 25 years old, so when I get to
same.
see a lot of those things, it's really cool. And I'm just curious, like, how have you been able to create an environment and a system that allows you to do that but doesn't kind of enable them, I guess, if that makes sense?
Um, so I am weak in that area. I will fully admit it. I think that's where partnership comes in. My husband, reminds me a lot when I'm overdoing it with the giving. Um, we have definitely implemented the chores and the payment system there, but they have not known. Do you hear that bullfrog? I'm just asking because it's
Yeah.
loud. I don't know where it done come from, but I apologize. It went
No, you're
quiet two
fine.
minutes ago.
This is real, so I don't
It's
care.
so real. I don't. I literally think it's like under my chair right now. So if I scream and jump, I apologize. Um, so I have really. You said traveling. When we travel, we teach them. It is fully a teaching moment for us, for them to know that us in the States have privilege, and where we travel typically does not. So we teach them the power of money. We They physically see us work. They come to job sites and help my husband work for a wage. They know the power of money. My daughter has sold clothes to earn things. They know that money gives us the power to do things. So they've learned that their entire life. Quite literally, I have built my boutique here from my kids being 2.5 and 18 months old. They have seen it all. So they know that working is important. They know why, and they know that money brings power, and it also brings the power to help change others. So when we go and we travel, we always have money to give back. They know that a $20 bill to a maid is like very powerful. Um, we have sat on beaches and gotten our hair braided by locals and had them completely fall apart and cry because the money that they received from us was for their Christmas dinner. And so they know that power. They have one on one been able to learn that with traveling. But also here at home, when there's a kid at school who doesn't have nice sneakers and they notice that there's holes in their shoes, they want to get them shoes. And they know that we have to work hard to be able to do that. Um, their giving hearts make me so happy because that was not the household that I lived in. If I would have said, I want to buy this girl new sneakers, my mom would have laughed in my face. So to be able to flip the script and teach them the complete opposite has been such a blessing. It truly is why I strive to build more businesses, why we strive to build more homes and connections with people locally, because it gives us the opportunity to teach those things to them that we otherwise couldn't. I know money is kind of a hard topic. I know you have a funny relationship with money. For me, money brings the opportunity to make change. And so the more money that I can make to put into the hands of organizations that I'm very passionate about and help change the world is truly what drives my business building. It drives me building better humans in my children, myself, people who come. It's funny because I'm kind of known as the therapist in our group of friends because if someone new comes around, I am that person. Like, how can I help you be a better human? I feel like the more connection we make, the more growth we have with people, the bigger our group of people evolve to, the more power we have to make change. So truly living that every single day with them, they learn it, they see it, they live it. They know they're very privileged, and they know that it brings power to make change too. So
That's powerful. That's so cool. It's like I knew that my mindset changed when before I used to get so jealous of like kids like Christina, like one of my good friends. I've had her on the show. I remember when I went to Cabo, that was my first international trip, and I was like, darn, I'm not the youngest one here because Izzy's like what? I think she was like
she
7 at
is
the time.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, she was like 7 or 8, and I was like, oh darn, Izzy, you stole my spotlight. But I think it's so interesting because I feel like if we don't want people to do better than us, like then that doesn't give us anything to like kind of strive towards. And like I said, like I've gotten to see a lot of the cool things that you've been able to do and just the life that you've been able to create, with your along with your husband and everything that you guys have really had to overcome together has been fascinating, and I'm sure your kids are, they're so happy to have you as a mom, so that's awesome.
And I
I
hope that when they get older, they'll see it more, right? Like
Yeah.
they're still young. Um, like they know that I have made an impact because we go to the stores and people recognize me. And I don't say that to gloat at all, but I feel like it comes with a lot of responsibility and they've learned that. Um, and yeah, I'm proud of them for how they've handled it because they go back to school and they teach it to their friends. And that's truly how an impact is made. It's not just within your own home, it's when you take those teachings out into the world and you teach others too. Sorry, there was a bug. Um, so I'm so proud of them. Like, I could only say that they're learning that just from living it every day.
Yeah. And it's so interesting as we kind of unpack like this whole conversation, life and business. Obviously built confident is the big thing that really is kind of your, I would say, like soul. I call it soul work, right? Like I
Yeah,
did the whole finance thing, made the money and got to travel, do all these things, but so many people are so unfulfilled because you learn that once you make money, you kind of realize like, okay, there's kind of more to life than money at some point, and it's like
yeah,
all the things just sure what you think is going to be the most amazing thing once you get there, you usually find that that isn't the case.
yeah.
And I'm curious for you, like, do your kids have like confidence issues, or it's like, has you really building this kind of movement, and obviously like they've gotten to see the incredible transformation that you've had. Do you feel like they've in many ways kind of, well, obviously you're your first client, but I feel like they're probably like your second and third, just being
Oh,
able to
100.
grow.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. My son is more like my husband. He is a little bit more introverted, but when he's comfortable, he is just like me. My daughter is a spitting image. No, she comes on my live every time she has to come say hi. She is a social butterfly just like me. Um, but my son is the same. It just takes him a little bit more to crack the nut. So,
Yeah, that's so cool that it's like you, both of your kids are, one's like your husband, one's like you, so you both kind of have like,
yeah,
your little mini me's.
it's so true. I think my son gets a lot more of my characteristics because he's around me a lot more than my husband. My husband is a lead carpenter, so he is on a job site from sun up to sundown. So he is more like my husband, but he definitely has my personality.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm really curious for you. So my journey to being an entrepreneur has been a fascinating one. It was kind of like I was a first generation entrepreneur, like obviously a little bit different for you because you kind of grew up in that environment. I'm curious for you though, because normally a lot of people, if your parents are like entrepreneurial, like from the get go, right? They usually hop into entrepreneurship or some type of venture along those lines. What was it that made you get started in healthcare? And then how did you end up in the whole LuLaRoe thing? Like, how did you find out about it? And yeah,
So as a kid, I always said I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be an OBGYN. I wanted to deliver babies because as a child, I loved babysitting. I loved being around kids. It was just something I enjoyed very much so. When I got into healthcare, that perspective completely changed because healthcare is a very hard profession. My nurse friends, I have a lot of them as I was in nursing for so long. I praise them. They going through COVID. I mean, I sent them things and made them know that they were so appreciated because that is a field that is. It should be on like what was that show? The Deadliest Catch was on like Steve. The like hardest jobs in the world. Like that should be nursing. Um, I enjoyed it. I learned so much, but I got burnt out. And when I had my children, it was just time not to go back. I've always had, and it's funny now that I'm dealing with all these autoimmune issues. I have always had pain. Like I remember when I was 14 and I first threw my back out for the first time. Um, so working in such a physically demanding job where I was taking care of upwards of 40 patients by myself, ranging from full assist Hoyer lifts to, independent care, just needed to remind them of things. But it was a very physically demanding job. It was a very mentally demanding job. And when I got pregnant, I worked all the way through my son. I was pregnant with him. Oh, I think all the way till 7 months I worked, in nursing care, and then I was on bed rest, from then on. I was in so much pain. That is when I was like, "I'm done." I just put in the white flag. I was just burnt out, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years.
wow. Yeah, powerful. And I guess we kind of have to go to that point because one of the things that I've really had to learn, and it's been an incredible gift, especially over the past few years, has been the power of perspective, right? Like, and I've been very transparent with people. Like, I'm in my 20s, I don't have kids, I don't have any responsibility anymore. But serving the demographic that I have, I've kind of run into a lot of people with a lot of the same challenges, right? Whether it's health issues, whether it's kids, whether it's business and traveling and all these type of things. And I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm a pretty intense person. And when I attack things, I'm like, go, go, go. And the thing that I'm so appreciative of is that I didn't actually know much about. I mean, I knew that lupus was an autoimmune disease, but I didn't actually know like how it affected people. And then you were saying like, well, this is what it normally does, but for me, it's like, way worse, because it's like I have like, it seems like multiple or all these things. And I've learned so much from you. I'm very curious though, like, because I know when we've talked privately, like you've said that you felt like you've had this for like years before it actually got diagnosed. Talk a little bit about that journey and what you're looking to do for other people on LinkedIn, like moving forward, who are either like they feel like maybe they're on the borderline or they actually have an autoimmune disease or disorder and they have no idea what they're doing.
Sure. Um, so as we've spoken and I've learned through mentorship, I've learned that I have faced a lot of adversity, and with autoimmune, you face a lot of adversity. It takes just lupus statistics. It could take up to 10 years for a lupus patient to be diagnosed. And that is because lupus surfaces as and symptoms surface as a lot of other things, or they mask themselves as a lot of other things. So for me, it started, I woke up one morning and I could not move my neck. Like I felt like I had been in a car accident. I could not turn my neck. It was like the worst pain I have ever experienced in my life. And I have had two C-sections and an umbilical hernia repair. So I know pain. And that was of pain. Like I could not use my entire right arm. I could not lay on my right side. I could not barely sit up by myself. At one point, I had to have my daughter take my shirt on and off and unclasp my bra because I just could not move. No idea. Could not figure out why. They put me in physical therapy, all the things. And it came down to having an MRI and finding out I had 3 herniated cervical discs. So that's how mine started, right? So to a doctor, that looks like, oh, this girl just screwed her neck up. Well, as it progressed and the pain didn't go away and other symptoms started arising, and then it was my entire right side, and then my face started to droop, and all these other symptoms start to come up. It's really just constantly having to test and keep up on it that I am lucky to have gotten a diagnosis, or almost to a diagnosis. I have not been officially diagnosed, but we do have some lab work that specifically says only people with lupus have this. So we know that's what it is, but I still don't have a diagnosis. And getting into a rheumatologist is like impossible at this point. And that is following COVID and all of the fun things that have happened with the vaccine and just the load on rheumatology itself. And I'm grateful that I have the medical experience that I have, because I wouldn't know this otherwise. I wouldn't know the system of healthcare unless I had physically worked in it. So now looking back, it makes sense why I was in the healthcare field for so long. And that's where I started. When I was 16, I started in the hospital as a dietary aide. So I know dietary, I know nursing, I know food serve, right? So I know all of these different areas of healthcare. And so I would not have known the system as well as I do, and how to manipulate the system to favor my outcome, like a normal person would, right? Someone who never worked healthcare in their life would have no idea, like the system in which things take to be approved through an insurance company or a doctor, or what tests to ask for and when to persist. I mean, you have to persist, and a lot of people don't know that. So what I've learned through honestly working with you and learning LinkedIn is that there's a lot of people in the lupus community who are suffering so, so, so badly, and they're suffering a suffrage that they don't have to. The natural remedies that I have found that I quite literally have had no choice but to imply in my life because I don't have the possibility to get things from a rheumatologist. That's why I saw a naturopathic doctor because I was in this waiting period of needing to get a referral to see a rheumatologist to get more answers, to get more testing done that only a rheumatologist can order. A normal my primary could not order these tests. It has to be ordered by a rheumatologist. And I was waiting for 18 plus months. Like I think I'm going almost 2 years waiting for a referral to a rheumatologist. So I had no choice but to implement naturopathic care so that I would have relief. And in that, I will never take pharmaceuticals just because I know that naturopathic care works. So being able to share that message, mentor others, and teach them the systems that I have imposed in my life and implied. So that they're not suffering. Nobody deserves to suffer on this earth. And so, if I can help that with Built Confident, it's truly just a process of regaining and unlearning habits. And your confidence is torn down, whether it's through someone who has said something to you, or a doctor who didn't believe you, or someone calling you crazy when you knew you weren't, or those situations that just slowly tear you down are easily built back up with systems and gratitude and seeking joy. So, I am finding so much potential here and really just implementing what I've implemented for the past 4 years with others. And that's what Built Confident is about. Um, just not even just helping just the lupus community, really, it could be imposed for anybody on a daily basis. So we all have challenge, we all have things we need to face, and building that confidence to do so is what I'm here for.
Yeah, absolutely powerful. I was like, darn, what happened? It's in my screen froze again.
Yeah.
The and you shared this on the audio event on Friday, and I was actually just kind of mind blown because I think that, and I'm curious on your thoughts on this, right? Like personal development, mentorship, all these things has been such a massive game changer in the past 3 years of my life, and in many ways, I feel like 3 years for me has been like 30 just because of how massively accelerated things get. And what's so interesting is I find mentorship and personal development to be so important because people think too small. And I was actually just even thinking about it for myself. Like you really blew me away at the audio event when you're like, yep. And I talked to my naturopath and like, we're gonna like teach and do something together about like how people can, utilize some of the things that I'm doing that might be able to help them. And then you were talking about the whole legal issue, how like in Michigan, it's technically not legal to do like to practice
Hmm.
like naturopathic care and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And I just these are the things that I didn't really think about when I created LinkedIn Success and I started working with people. It was just kind of like the story in and of itself. But where I think so many people sleep on LinkedIn is the fact that because of the professional nature of the platform, you have the power to make like real change. I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about like massive change. I mean, you could potentially rewrite legislation in the state of Michigan and help so many people who have been suffering so long, right? And it goes back to this idea in many ways that I learned last year when I moved to South Florida is that pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice, right? Like
Absolutely.
pain, it hurts to grow, right? And I'll use the example of like working out. Like your muscles are literally like breaking themselves down to grow bigger, right? So pain's gonna hurt. we have the option, though, especially with the fact that for most of us, we have the entire world at our fingertips now, that I don't feel like I've found anything in the world that hasn't kind of been solved to some extent. So there's usually always, like you were saying, some type of resource or person that you can reach out to now. And I love asking this question. This is like my favorite question. I think I've asked it to everybody that's come on this show. Obviously, you and I have talked a lot about how meaningful and impactful personal development and mentorship has been on both of our lives. I'm curious for you, who has been the most either impactful mentor or person that you've met on your journey, and what was the most valuable lesson that they've taught you?
It's 100% Danelle Delgado. Like I have told you before, and I prayed for her. When I was at my lowest, I remember, and I will always remember core memory here. Literally lowest moment in my daughter's bedroom. I had just put them back into school post COVID. I did pull my children out when they imposed masks on kids, and homeschooled them for the remainder of the year. And when I sent them back, because our school district was actually one of the ones that dropped mandatory masks in our area right away. I mean, right when they could, they were gone. But when I sent them back, I knew I needed something for myself. I was not in a good place. COVID really mentally drained me. I was scared. My whole world was shattered when I got COVID. It was something I didn't think I would ever have to deal with, and I did. And then it hit me really hard, and now I'm kind of understanding why it hit me hard because I had lupus. So coming out of that and putting them back in school, yeah, it was a point where I bawled in my daughter's bedroom floor, and I prayed God to put someone in my life that would bring change, and give me the platform and the voice that I knew I had, and the story to stop hurting me and start helping others. Um, I prayed for her, and quite literally was smacked dab right in the face at a leadership event at LuLaRoe. I am honestly just as equally grateful for Deanne Stidham, who was the CEO of LuLaRoe. She quite literally has been a celestial mother to me. Um, she has filled that motherly role ever since I told my mom to get out. And so she is one who holds great impact because if it wasn't for her, I would not have met Danelle. But God threw her in right at the right time. And a funny story I'll share because I truly live a very holy life. That's just the way I am, and I understand that not everybody is that way, but um, I prayed for her, and I had started about a month prior to this leadership convention. I had started a 90-day challenge. I don't know if you have ever heard of the 90 Days Hard, but that's a workout challenge where you start 3 months before the end of the year. So you roll into the new year strong. I had always failed on New Year's resolutions of losing weight. Mind you, I was pushing almost 300 pounds. And so I started on a 90-day challenge, scared, uneducated, had no idea why, but I knew I needed to get better and lose some weight. So I had started this 90-day challenge. It was obviously October 1st that I started it, and the leadership was at the end of October. So I had been on it for a few months. I'm sorry, a few weeks. Got traveling for the first time. And if anyone who knows that works out, traveling and working out is a challenge in itself. When you're not in your normal environment, it makes it a lot harder and a lot easier to say you don't want to do it. And that's exactly what I was about to do. I got to the resort. I had an early flight. Normally, I work out first thing in the morning. And I was like, oh, I ain't doing it. I was up early. I just walked the whole entire airport. I'm going down to get a coffee and some breakfast and calling it a day. And I made it to the elevator and ding! There's Danelle Delgado, featured speaker of our leadership event, headed down to the gym. And quite literally, I was like, hi, how are you? Super nervous, could barely talk, said our hellos. And the second the doors closed in my head, what I called God speaking to me was saying, what are you doing? Why are you skipping out on your workout when that is in the gym? Like what? And I didn't listen. I did not listen to my intuition right off the bat. I went down to Starbucks. I got myself a nice coffee and a breakfast sandwich and went back up to my room. And when I went to go sip the coffee and completely burned my tongue, not even lying, third degree, like blister burns on my tongue, I was like, okay, I know exactly where I need to be. I put my workout clothes on, went downstairs, and had my very first workout with Danelle Delgado with a photo to prove it. We both look very different from that photo now. And I made sure to update that when we were in Cancun a couple months ago. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
100%. Those two women have been the most impactful in my life to date.
so awesome. I mean, it's so powerful because it's like I feel like both of my mentor parents, like we kind of talked about it in the pre-live, like the founder of the community of our community, the Outlier Project, and then the now obviously like I call her mentor mom. The things that we've learned from her, I feel like are priceless things that we'll have for the rest of our lives. Like I've been practicing gratitude going on 4 years now, and I feel like you're pretty much around the
Yep.
same, right? Yeah, like about
Yeah.
four
It's like
years.
3.5 years. I didn't pick it up right away. I'm not going to lie. I was like, yeah, okay. I really honestly didn't believe that a system like that would actually work. And so I didn't right away. And then when I was able to win actually some extra time with Danelle through LuLaRoe with a mastermind that was set aside for just a select amount of people to help build the business, was when I really hunkered down and started working the system and saw the change. And it's been ever since. I haven't missed a day.
Yeah, so powerful. And I think to even going back to the whole systems thing, like you and I are such like system people, but you're definitely like I have no shame in admitting like you're definitely way more hardcore than I am about it. I always wake up on my Facebook thing and I'm like, oh yeah, there's Michelle, like five, six
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning, she's running on the treadmill, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think I'm ever gonna be that person just because
Never say never.
yeah, you're
Never
right.
say never.
We've talked about that, but it's just not like I don't know. I think for me, I've for the longest time, I never really felt like I was a an early bird, but I also like wasn't really like a night owl. I felt like I was very like adaptable, but I just feel like if you gave me the option, I would prefer to stay up later and sleep. I'm not saying like sleep in, but I mean I'd say like now I generally sleep till I don't know like 7, 8 o'clock. But you definitely aren't gonna see me getting up at no 5, 6 o'clock in the
Well,
morning.
like I wish I could say that it comes from a good thing, but it really doesn't. I get up early because my cortisol levels are hijacked by trauma, and getting them to stabilize has been very hard.
Mm,
If I take a cortisol manager, there are some natural remedies that allow you to stabilize your cortisol naturally. It just goes right out of whack with the first thing that happens to trigger me.
yeah,
So it's just something that I really have had to adjust with and realize that that's just who I am. It honestly is just part of who I am.
yeah,
I have just grown to love being a morning person. I love coming out with my cup of coffee and going from crickets chirping to birds singing. But don't ask me to stay up past 8:30, 9 o'clock because and this lupus does not does not work.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, I feel like I think everybody and correct me if I'm wrong. There are morning people, there are midday people, and there are night people for a reason because we have things that have to function at nighttime and we need those people. And honestly, it's our body's way of regulating itself to where it needs to be. So don't get down on yourself because you're not a morning person. You just have better cortisol levels than me.
Well, I think too the thing that is key to mention too is that I'm curious. You get probably about do you get 8 hours of sleep roughly?
No, lupus, actually, it's very common for lupus people to have very bad sleep patterns
Mm.
because of the like instability within our body. It does affect the mind a lot, so it is very common for lupus people to have insomnia. I typically can function off 5 hours of sleep. I usually get between 5 to 7 hours of sleep depending on the day, but honestly, a lot of the time because autoimmune typically gets worse at nighttime. Waking up early in the morning is a lot because I can't lay there anymore and I have to start moving the inflammation. I could literally lose 3 to 5 pounds in 6 hours, like weigh myself first thing in the morning and then weigh myself at noon, and I could be 5 pounds lighter just in the fluid that I move. So, waking up early also is just because I can't lay in bed anymore.
Yeah, that's powerful because my aunt is definitely a morning person and she's always been that way. And it's funny sometimes because as she's gotten like older, before she would wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning and she's like, and now it's more like 6, 7. Sometimes like if she'll sleep in, she'll like 8 or something. But I do think that's interesting, right? How everybody is so different. And to your point, that was one of the reasons why like this whole like self-awareness piece becomes so important, and why communication is also so important, because I normally do impossible equals impossible at 8, and then when you were saying like, oh well, because of the autoimmune disease, like I function better like earlier, and I was like, oh well, it's like, why not move it up or something. And I just think that I I've learned so much from you about like not just autoimmune diseases in general, but just how to interact, and it's like, change things if I run into somebody else who maybe does have another one, or who does have an autoimmune disease. So this has been like really powerful. I'm I'm curious for you, right? Where I want to go next. So obviously, you and I have had a lot of conversations about intuition and how it. I think for me, it's become my word, theme, and area of focus this year. So I kind of a two-part question, right? And one's kind of like a selfish question. I've always kind of just been curious. Number one, how did you learn to really listen to your intuition, especially like when you were younger? I feel like you were kind of in this place of you were always operating out of like survival, right? You didn't really have to think about, well, like this is what I want. Like you were just trying to survive for like so long. And then the second question is, before we started working together, you had watched me win here probably about for like 2 years. I'm curious,
Yeah.
like what was that thing that made you like pull the trigger and say, I want to do it? Because I think so many people waste so much time watching instead of doing. And I'm just curious, like, what was that thing for you that like changed everything?
Okay, so first question, intuition. I have always gotten discernments from God. I know that might sound weird to some people. A lot of people think that that's not a thing, but it really is. For a while, I called myself psychic, but I have since learned that that is a lot of evil. And so I don't say that word much anymore. I have awoken. So I don't know. I can't really tell you how it was learned because it just was to come to be. I think possibly that I am a extreme empath. I can 100% feed off energy. I can walk into a room and know where the problem is right off the bat, and that always is a good thing. Sometimes it makes a lot of empaths feel really icky because they do sense that negative energy a lot. And so me, when I sense it, it's gone. I don't have it's a like a non-negotiable for me. I do not like to have negative people in my life, much so because I did it for so many years with my own mother, and it had such a negative impact on my life. So When I have feelings, I feel them and I listen to them and I don't suppress them. If I have a bad feeling of somebody, I walk away. If I have a good feeling about somebody, I dive in further. And that is exactly what happened with you. We talked that night while you were waiting for dinner in Cancun and had great conversation. But it wasn't until you sought me out and made me feel like I was someone special and someone that you were interested in talking to that I pulled the trigger. So when you came to my cabana and you hung out with me and you got to know me, that is how I operate. So that is what won you the game, sir. I do that with everything in life. I feel like there's 100 people you can choose, and you have to choose the one that's perfect for you. That happens. I just had this talk with my photographer this morning, as he was like, I don't understand why you picked me, but it was a thing about Facebook and what to post at the same time. But it was also me honestly just saying I really do dive into research where I'm spending my money and how I spend it, because I do know the power that it brings. And how hard I work for it. And so when I choose to support somebody, it's somebody that aligns with my morals, aligns with my pillars, and like I have watched you the last 2 years go from a quiet mouse to a vibrant voice here on LinkedIn, not only in LinkedIn, but I watched you in Mastermind with Danelle as well. So I like people like that. I like people who jump and take adversity and flip it. And that's what you did. And so just having conversation with you, honestly, is what made me say yes.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think what you said is there was something there that really resonated as well, right? Is that I think sometimes we need somebody else to like see the brilliance in us, because for the longest time, everybody else around me was like, oh, you're this, you're that. But it really didn't click for me until the first retreat actually that I went to with Dano, and she asked me that question, like, when are you going to stop being the best kept secret and share your story? And now I get to ask, I've asked you that question and a lot of my other clients. And I think it really is this full circle moment on you really just try to kind of pay things forward. And I, one of the things, and I'm curious for you because I'm kind of conflicted about this, because you hear a lot of people that talk about, oh, you do research and all these things. But for me, I've always found that like creating for yourself, if something's good for you, it's probably good for a bunch of other people, as long as your intentions are aligned, right? If you're trying to like scam or deceive somebody, that's obviously not. But I'm curious for you, when you created your program, right? Built Confident, and obviously like you're going through the coaching certifications and all these things. How did you really create this system? And when you were creating it, was it kind of the program that you wish that you had? And obviously it's taken you years and years and years on this journey. The fact that you're going to be able to help somebody accelerate is honestly such a priceless feeling.
Yeah, I feel like when we finally get over ourselves is when we start to make a change. And it wasn't until someone told me that I was making a change, that my survival guide, my sharing of what I was doing, how I was healing, and personally, that's just what I've done. My own self have shared it through social media, shared it through live streams with my clients, shared it through my daily activities, um, to share it with my mom. I quite literally post so my mom can see the good that I'm doing, that in maybe an unhealthy way, has a little bit of hope for her to get herself together. I am building a system that I needed to survive, that I know my mom needs to get better, and I know will help and impact generations to come, because it has worked for me. So if I can attract my tribe, if I can share my story and people resonate with me, they're going to attach to me. And if I can teach them what worked for me, I just pray that it can be their survival guide, and then repeat it. Teach them how to do the same thing, because truly it's what we need. We need more people to go out there and teach what we know and help do the change and make the change that's needed in the world. And the more people we can do that with, the faster it gets done.
Yeah, this has been such a fun conversation, Michelle. Like,
I
you
could
know,
talk to you for hours, I swear. Like,
you know
I'm
how I
not tired. If
feel.
you want to keep talking, you're good.
No, I mean, this has been just an amazing conversation. I've told you this before. Like, I think a lot of people who know me know that the word inspiration is like a really sacred word to me, and I think that the way that I view it for me is really like the deepest form of love for a person, because when I think about inspiration, it really is about wanting to like be more than you already are. So it's kind of like some that thing that you don't necessarily have but you're working towards, and just getting to work with you to learn more about like your story. And I remember we were it was a messenger exchange, and I was just like, oh my god, like I didn't know any of this stuff. Like I was blown away by
Yeah,
like all the stuff that she's overcoming. But I was like, holy cows, like this really is a full circle, impossible equals impossible moment. And one of the things that I told myself, because I feel like a lot of people who are coaches and they do these type of things, they put their clients on pedestals because they care more about their results than they do um them as people. And very rarely do I ever have any of my clients as a guest on this show. One, because this is like a legacy project for me, so there's kind of a special thing there. But I just feel like what you're going to achieve on LinkedIn and the impact that you've already kind of created there, and I can't wait for you to meet, because I have like some friends who are local in Michigan. That's like so fun for me. I'm so excited for you and everything that you're about to achieve. And I just want to say, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been an
my pleasure.
absolute pleasure. And I always do this before we close out, but I'm going to hand you the full screen. And any final words that you want to share, anything that you want to promote, definitely. You can either drop it in the comments or send it to me, and I can drop it as well. But thank you so much for being here. This has been so fun. I've loved getting to know you, and you and I will definitely be lifelong friends for sure. So I'm gonna hand you
Yeah,
the full screen.
absolutely. Yeah, I just want to finish off by saying that not everything that's handed to you has to be the way that it is. You can seek growth. You can grow out of any difficult situation with systems and a community of nurturance, guidance, and protection. I think a lot of us lack that. We lose that along the way. And I hope that I can be of support and growth in those areas that you seek growth in. You can catch me at confidenceisbuilt.com or on LinkedIn here, my own name, Michelle Shooltz. And just hit me up in a private message. I understand that some life hurdles may be difficult to talk about. And I want you to know that your conversation is safe with me. If you need someone to talk to, if you need someone to help you build the life that you're dreaming of, I am here. Confidence is truly built if you seek it and you are willing to do the work to grow it. I appreciate you so much, Paul, the work we've done together, the platform that you have taught me, and the possibilities here are endless. I cannot wait to grow. I cannot wait to share more. And like I said, you can catch me on Facebook anytime. That's my main platform as I am growing here on LinkedIn. Confidenceisbuilt.com. Look for more courses and things that we will be working on there in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been so fun, Michelle.
So
Thank you
fun.
so much to everybody who. I know that LinkedIn's so funky with these live streams in the comments, but it's a good thing that this is on YouTube and you can definitely catch the replay. Carrie, thank you so much for being here, my friend. This is the only comment that's popping up for me, but I know, like,
And we'll go back and answer any of them that we see
yeah,
after
for
as
sure.
well.
And if any of you have questions or anything, drop them below. Reach out to Michelle, connect with her. She'll be doing her own audio events and all those things soon. So it'll be, yeah, I'm just so excited for you.
I
It's
am too.
funny because for the longest time, like being a mentor to like people who were older than me was like so weird. But now that reverse mentoring is like a term, I guess that's kind of like the way that I see it. And if I'm being honest, I think we're all like mentors and teachers at
I
the
was just
same
gonna
time.
say that. I
Yeah.
was like, go back to listen to like the beginning of the live when we were talking about Izzy. And like truly, if you haven't learned something from Izzy, who's what, 11, um, we truly all can learn something from somebody, whether they're 5 or 2 and you're learning your patience with a toddler, or 99 and you're learning about the biggest life lessons of someone who has lived their entire life full, right? Um, don't limit yourself. You can learn something from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been so fun. I'm sure
So
you
fun.
and I will see each other soon. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Have an amazing Tuesday evening. And yeah.